Hey, Dave Schweeder here with Entrust Facilities Care. If you hear any noise in the background, it's my operations guy. He's, and then we got guys talking over here. But anyway, I wanted to do a few parts video for facilities managers, and the title of this series is called "Why Do My Walls Look So Bad?" And I wanted to sort of explain or break down how paint works and how primers work, so that you can sort of diagnose when things go bad. So today I'd like to talk about, first of all, sealers and primers. First of all, what is the difference between a sealer and a primer? Basically, a primer is something that you put onto a surface and that allows the paint to adhere to it correctly. So for example, if you have galvanized iron, that's that iron that looks like flaky. If it's raw iron, then it is acidic, and you have to, alkaline. You have to wash it down, for example, with vinegar to reduce the acidity so that the paint can stay. So that would be an example of a primer. Also, if you have aluminum, aluminum does not carry paint very well, so we have what's called an etching primer. That would be an acid that scores the surface of the aluminum and allows your paint to stick. But today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a sealer. Now, what does a sealer do? Well, when it comes to paint, all paints have three general components, and the difference between a gloss and a matte is just simply the percentage of the components. So, for example, all water-based paints contain coloring agents. That's basically like a chalk, titanium dioxide, and a glue, and water. And water is what allows all these two items to be carried together. Most flat paints will contain maybe 2 or 3% glue. Eggshells or this sort of contain about a 15 to 18% glue, and then you've got your gloss paints that contain more glue, and so you have different variations in the amount of glue. And what that does is the glue is what provides the protection and the reflectivity. So a gloss paint is very reflective and very protective because it has a lot of glue in it, but at the same time it doesn't cover as well because for all that glue you have to sacrifice the internal component of the paint, which is the titanium dioxide and the colorants. Hope that makes sense. So what does a sealer do? Now, traditionally, a sealer is called most sealers are called polyvinyl acetates. What does that mean? Well, an acetate means it is film forming. And polyvinyl would mean that there are many different vinyl molecules in that material. So you have small molecules and large molecules. And what's the point? Well, what happens when they make this is they put a detergent into this product, and the small molecules actually penetrate drywall, wallboard, wood, and these sort of things, paper, and penetrate to provide a grip on the surface, and then the larger molecules will lay on top and provide a large sealed surface. And when we say sealed, what that means is that when you put your paint on it, no component of that paint is going to go through. Now, usually what happens, if you've ever done this, say someone has painted a wall and they've done a drywall repair, then they've gone back and painted that, then we get what's called a bullseye or a flash. It doesn't look right. It suddenly becomes very dull at that spot. And when you're looking at it straight on, it might look okay, but then when you look at it from the side where you're seeing the light reflect into your eyes, it looks very strange. Well, what happened was when you put that paint on to cover over that spot, the glue component of the paint absorbed into the drywall, and the chalk component or the titanium dioxide stayed on the surface. Now, that glue is what makes it shiny, remember? So when the glue absorbs into the surface, it leaves a dull finish on top. So basically what a sealer would do was it would prevent that leaking through. And believe it or not, sometimes you can put several coats of paint on a surface, and if there's no sealer, that paint will keep seeping through. And when you look at that wall, it won't look right. It won't look right, not because the color's not correct, but because the amount of light entering your eye is different and is patchy, and that's what makes the wall look bad. So number one, when you have a job, especially if you have bare drywall with compound, that's number one. But if you've taken off wallpaper, if you've removed wallpaper, you've patched the walls. Sometimes if you have like a dark color and you're trying to go over with a light color, now remember that dark color is going to contain a lot of pigment and titanium dioxide. It's going to pull your paint right into it, and you're going to paint over it. Let's say I was painting a white over a dark blue. and I paint that white over it, well, that dark blue pulls my white paint into it, and it makes it very difficult for that white to cover correctly. So if you want to save time and money, you would seal that wall first. So this first episode of Why Do My Walls Look So Bad is when you seal a wall correctly, it allows your paint to lay on it in a uniform manner. And that's what allows, especially when they look at paint, for example, they usually look at down the wall at an angle. So it's going into your eye. So if you want to see if a wall, like if you look at this wall behind me, how do we do this? This wall over here. Geez, that was weird, huh? If you look at that wall behind me, we're kind of looking down the wall. So when you want to look at the job that your contractor's done, is you look down the wall, and then you can quickly spot problems with the primer because it's the amount of light being reflected into the eyes. So that's part one. And we'll get to the next part is, why do my freshly painted and sealed walls look crappy anyways? And we'll do that in part two. So talk to you in a minute.